You're listening to The Portfolio Composer, hosted by me, Dr. Garrett Hope, where business and creativity go hand in hand. Join us at theportfoliocomposer.com for news, talks, and workshops. This episode is brought to you by Dorico, the music notation software from Steinberg that's designed to save you time. Dorico 4, Steinberg's latest major version of music notation and composition software for Mac OS and Windows, is packed with powerful new features that are designed to accelerate your workflow and make it quicker and easier than ever to go from inspiration to finished product. If you're a composer, arranger, or orchestrator, you'll be delighted by the sophisticated new tools on offer. And there are improvements across the whole application, whatever your focus. For more information and to download a free 30-day trial of Dorico 4, visit www.steinberg.net/TPC. Hello, and welcome to episode 247 of the Portfolio Composer podcast. I'm your host, your coach, and your teacher, Garrett Hope. Today's episode is pretty exciting because Danielle Kuntz and I are going to talk about her work as a new music harpist, how she is working hard to revolutionize the way composers interact with performers, and a new project she's launching that you want to take part of called the Toolbox Sessions. It's going to be a fantastic weekend of learning and instruction and growth as a composer and an orchestrator. As a new music harpist, Danielle Kuntz is dedicated to bringing new music to life. She has focused her career on connecting living composers with new audiences by commissioning them and performing their music. Danielle also works to make the harp a more accessible instrument for composers through lectures, workshops, and individual instruction. Danielle holds degrees from the University of North Texas and is currently based in Ann Arbor, Michigan. After you listen to this episode, go to toolboxsessions.com and use coupon code TPC22. That's the letters TPC and the numbers 22 to receive a 10% discount off your ticket price. All right, I look forward to seeing you there, and I hope you get a lot out of this episode. Hi, Danielle. Welcome to the Portfolio Composer podcast.
Thank you so much. I am really honored to be here. Super excited to chat with you.
I'm excited too. This has been a long time coming. We first started actually talking only recently.
Yeah.
But I have been aware of you and following your social media accounts for a long time. So it's a pleasure to actually have you on the line and to discuss this stuff.
Yeah, same here. I think you were one of the first podcasts I started listening to because since a lot of my work is with composers, it's been so valuable for me to just kind of get this insight into what composers do, especially the ones that aren't just recent graduates or still in school.
Yeah.
So it's been really eye-opening for me. And it's fun. You talk to a lot of cool people.
I think so.
And I'm honored to be one of them.
Well, I don't want to talk to someone who is not interesting. We can just say that.
Well, that's good. I'm glad I'm interesting.
Oh, you're very interesting. We'll dig into that. But let's start with my kind of baseline opening question. As you know about the whole portfolio lifestyle, when we're building our careers, we do a lot of this and a little bit of that, and it's a potpourri of things. Danielle, what's in your portfolio? What are you doing to build your career?
When I started up in school, I was going the regular harp performer route, which meant my goal was to win an orchestra job or get a professor position. And in the meantime, as my backup job, I would be teaching kids how to play harp or piano. I'd be taking every gig that came my way and just that whole thing, which I just realized that lifestyle is not for me for multiple reasons. But a big one is just I realized my best performances were always with new music, contemporary music, playing music where there's actually composers I can work with. So I really decided just to take my career in that direction just because I'm good at it, I love it, and it's a little bit more unique. So kind of what I'm doing now, I do a lot of individual coaching work with composers. I'm not sure I like the term coach necessarily, but it's more of a collaborative work because I'm not teaching a composer how to compose. That's their skill. That's not my skill. What I do is just kind of help them adapt their work to the harp to really use the strengths of the harp. So I do that. I do, performing. Sometimes I do weddings. It's not my main thing, but if you're a harpist, you play for weddings. And then I'm working on putting together a course that will actually delve into the details of writing for the harp. That I'm hoping will be a resource both for composers, but also for other harpists who are working with composers. just to be able to explain this stuff, and then they can actually focus on the details instead of starting from the beginning. Something I've kind of realized with the portfolio mentality is it's good to have multiple, streams of income, different projects that you're working on, but it's a challenge to try to make all of them happen at once, especially
it is.
If you are, someone who is recently out of school. So something I've been trying to do is just work on implementing one thing at a time, streamline it, make it automated a little bit more, or with minimal work from me outside of the actual interaction with the composers or clients, anyone, and then work on building another one. So just kind of working on one thing at a time instead of having to do everything, get it all done at once.
So you said a few interesting things I kind of want to circle back on, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the first is, I think what you do is a lot of coaching. And the reason I say that is because the best definition of coaching I found comes from the book Coactive Coaching, which is kind of a, how do you do this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And that definition is, the coach's job is to deepen the learning and further the action. It's not to tell someone what to do, but it's to hold the place that they can get there, that they have the ability and the power to make the decisions. And you're not telling composers what to do.
Right.
You might say, yeah, this doesn't work.
Here's some options.
Here's some options.
Or you could probably think of another option given certain parameters.
So with that definition, I think you're a great coach.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuances in there because I don't want to say they're my students. They are, but most of the time they're my peers.
Yes.
And I'm just, collaborating and working, and I learn things from them. They learn things from me.
Yeah.
It's really cool, actually.
Oh, yeah. I love that two-way street.
I love the people I work with.
Yeah, good. The path that you're on is fascinating, especially creating content that helps both the composer and the performer.
Mm-hmm.
As a composer, I am desperate to know how to write idiomatically for instruments. We all are. And we go
That's a great buzzword. Everyone's
right?
like, what does idiomatic even mean?
Well, let's talk about that, but hold on a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
We go to university, take orchestration classes, we read the manuals, and it's just part of the way there.
Notation for harp is really a tricky thing because we have so much contradictions in the historical literature. So if you are looking at older harp music to learn how to write for harp, it may or may not actually be helpful. So program notes, just do all the performance notes in your score. We appreciate it. But the big thing with extended techniques is really you have to know what's going on, because you can't just say, oh, cut and paste, extended technique here, cut and paste, we'll do another one here. It's really, how do you get into the technique? How do you get out of it? How do you layer techniques? Can you layer techniques? Can you do multiple things at once?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes a certain technique will be possible, but doing it in the context that it's in may or may not work. So context is such a huge factor in playability.
I'm sure.
I could write a book. I'm not going to write a book because what I really want to do is more of a curriculum approach. So that's why I'm actually doing a course, because I think it's so crucial to integrate multiple learning approaches, multiple teaching approaches. I think the technical term is differentiated instruction. So if I'm teaching someone, I want to be able to demonstrate it. So like a video lecture, give them a reference, like a PDF or something that they can then see it for easy reference. Because if you're in the moment, you're not going to go watch a 20-minute long video to remember something. You want to have a book you can quickly grab and look at it. And then I also want to be able to give writing examples and then give the opportunity to practice. So actually write something.
Mm-hmm.
Grade yourself, whether it's a live course with me or whether I just give someone a rubric to be able to self-grade. So I think that's so important rather than just, writing a book.
I agree.
Because there's books out there. There's multiple books out there that are all quite good, but we still have the same problems and challenges with writing.
And the technology allows us now to create the content. So we hit different, here's another buzzword, modalities of learning, right?
I think that was the word I was looking for.
So the kinesthetic learner, the audio learner, the visual learner, like you're trying to hit all of that at the same time. And I think it's brilliant.
It's so necessary because any one person, you're not going to learn one specific way. So even if you are a kinesthetic learner, you still need to have elements of all the others as well to be able to really learn.
Yep.
As an instructor, you have to provide all of that, not just one.
Yes, 100%.
And that's a learning process for me as an educator as well.
Okay, I want to go back to one other thing you said.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I think the phrase was, your best experiences was doing new music. It was along those lines. I can't remember the word exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And I'm wondering what that meant. Was it the performance experiences were more rewarding, or was it the collaborative part with living musicians and composers? Can you just expand on what that meant to you?
Yeah, it was actually all of it. So this was during my junior year of undergrad, and that was a semester I had a lot of really frustrating performances. I think I was just doing way too much. I was taking some auditions. I had won the concerto competition at my school, bombed that performance as in not good because there was just so much going on. But the one performance that really did well was the one I did that was premiering a new piece. And that piece, it was a good piece. It wasn't perfect. There were a lot of really unplayable things. I took it as a challenge because all the other harpists said, this is going to be too hard. This is impossible. And I was like, I want to prove you wrong.
Wow.
I probably shouldn't have done that in hindsight, but it was one of those pieces where, like, behind the music, the ideas are really there. I don't know. It's the term I'm trying to figure out how to explain. There's the notated music, and then there's the actual music behind
Sure.
the music. And once as a performer, I can find that, everything just comes together. And that was the performance where I felt like I really connected with the audience every time I performed the piece, even when it was for, my harp studio, none of them were into new music, but that piece resonated with them. And that was the coolest thing because I was able just to convey it. And same thing when I performed it for the composition recital series. I was like, this is what I want to do, to be able to share new music, create new experiences for audiences, work with composers to bring new music to life is just so much more rewarding than to just play this exact same music that everyone else is playing. Because, like, why? Why should I do that? Why do I need to make another recording of the WC dances? You can go to YouTube and you can find so many recordings that are all probably better than I could do because I have my strengths and I have my weaknesses. I might as well do something that is creating something new and exciting, and I can bring that to audiences.
Yeah. I think that is an important place to get to, but I don't see a lot of performers getting there as quickly as you did. I mean, that seemed to happen during your undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
As an observer, I mean, I'm not a performer. So as a composer and as just a lover of music, I see that there's this push to prove that you can do all the things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that means playing the standard rep over and over and over again. But we do not need another recording of Debussy's dances or Beethoven's Five.
And it's a great piece.
Yeah.
It's a cool piece. I'm not going to say it's not.
Yeah, it's great. There's a reason we still play it.
There's so many people who have played it so well.
Yeah.
I don't need to contribute yet another recording. But it's funny you bring that up because it really took me until my master's degree to accept that this was the path I wanted to go because I was still trying to do everything.
Oh, okay.
And that came down to the schools I applied for my master's. And I won't get into that because that's another story. But it helped me realize that I don't have to be doing the same thing as everyone else because there's only so many opportunities out there for the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, let's do the new music thing.
What does that mean to you when you say there's only so many opportunities? That's a word that means a lot to me, and I talk about it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell me what you meant by that?
Yeah, it's kind of a loaded word. I'm talking about just standard opportunities, meaning the standard structured jobs. So as in, if I'm going to do what everyone else is doing, I'm going to be applying for every single orchestra position that opens
Mm-hmm.
or any job that is. So meaning opportunity, I guess, would be structured opportunities. Whereas what I'm trying to do is I'm creating the opportunities for myself, which is a ton of work. And I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting to the point in my career where those opportunities are coming to me so I can spend more time actually, doing the work instead of that admin side where I'm actually having to pitch and create everything and then also do the work. So someday we will get there. We're making progress.
Yeah, it takes time. But can we live here in this part of the conversation for a second? Is that all right?
Yeah.
So you hit exactly at the heart of what I mean when I talk about opportunities, is that we can hold our hands out like Oliver Twist for these opportunities and say, please, sir, can I have some more? Can I play in your orchestra? Will you hire me? Instead of creating our own. And I know it's a lot of work and it's frustrating and it's tiring, but we then can create more opportunities, more varied opportunities in different ways to meet our audiences and serve them and to make new music, right?
Well, the big thing is really meeting with the audience because I guess this is kind of another tangent. One of the frustrating things I've seen, both with new music and both just in music with general, is I feel like it's musicians are making music for the musicians.
Yes, they are.
We're just like making it all for ourselves. We're passing around the same, $500 to each other instead of actually creating something for a larger audience that the larger audience wants. So that's part of my frustration with academic new music.
Yes.
And I say that carefully because I also dig it. It's cool.
Sure.
And I love the experimental side of it, but you have to then take that somewhere. So there is a place for just, doing avant-garde, and we're trying all the things, and no one's going to understand it, but it's still cool. But then there's also a side where you have to then bring it to an audience in a way that they can understand it. And that, means programming it carefully, explaining it to them, like talking to your audience.
Yes.
Is nice. And then just like creating that environment for a non-musical audience to be able to connect with the music. So that's something I'm really trying to do as a performer, is connecting with an audience, even a non-musical audience.
It looks like you're doing a great job of creating those entry points.
I'm starting to see that, and it's exciting.
Yeah. I agree that there is a place for, let's call it academic music, or capital N, capital M, new music, trademark, right? Like the new music.
Exactly.
And that's good. That's the thing. But that audience is small, fine. It's also insular, less fine. And it doesn't actually help people outside of that little small community.
Right. And then they're all saying, we need funding to be able to keep doing this, which we do.
We do.
But we have to actually do something for the people who are giving us the money.
Yes. There's people who want to engage with what we're doing, but we're keeping them outside with this kind of mentality. And I meet with a lot of composers who are like, I want to write new music. Because in school, normally we write chamber music because it's easier for composers to put recitals together, and you can do cool things with chamber music.
For sure. I've been in the orchestras that read the new music.
Yeah.
Chamber's better if you can actually get some performers who know what they're doing.
Yes. But then there's not a huge chamber music audience.
No.
So I talk to a normal audience level, and this is someone who might love coming to concerts. And I'll say, do you even know what a Perot ensemble is? And I'm like, what? No. And so there's this disconnect here, and I think it's exactly what you're saying. So I love that you're trying to take that outside of where it's living and engage with the people who want the music. There's people who want what we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's also talk about idiomatic and why you don't like that word. Or maybe you like the word, but you said it's loaded.
I love the word.
Okay.
But it's one of those vague words that we say when we can't think of another word to use. And no one really knows how to define it. I mean, there's definitions for it.
Okay.
But it's one of those kind of vague words. Because when I talk about idiomatic, there's so many things I can be referring to. For harp, especially, I'm referring to music that actually fits the hands well, as in, fits the shape of the hands, works with the technique, works with the instrument rather than working against it. But that still seems like a very vague explanation. So then to explain that, I get into all the technical details, which may or may not actually be helpful. I don't know. When someone's just asking, what do I mean by idiomatic?
Well, I was going to ask. Give me an example. Like, tell me about a time when you were working with someone to help them write better. And in order to do that, you had to help them learn, at least in that instance, a way to write their idea idiomatically.
Okay. Yeah, I actually just worked with the composer yesterday on it. So the style of the music that was written was low, like a bass note line, and then you have the melody, and then you have descending arpeggios, which sounds like a very harp-friendly pattern. Except the problem with the arpeggios was that in order to play it well, I would have to split them between the hands, so be alternating hands as I'm going down the harp, rather than it all being one hand, quickly jump back up, one hand, jump back up. So in order to make that idiomatic, we had to reorder some of the lines of the arpeggio to be able to keep it all in the right hand, or take out a couple of the bass notes for the left hand to then take over. So in making it idiomatic, it took a little bit of tweaking. It actually ended up sounding very similar, except better, because I'm not playing it while I'm frazzled necessarily. Another, probably a clearer example would be the way that the hands are oriented at the harp. We have our thumbs at the top and the fingers going down, versus on the piano, the way that you lay your hands out, the thumbs are on the inside, fingers on the outside. So if you're writing idiomatically for the piano, or chords or patterns that fit comfortably with the hands, you'll want your larger intervals on the inside of the chord, smaller intervals on the outside. On the harp, because the thumbs are on top, you want to have the larger intervals on the top, smaller intervals on the bottom for both hands, not just the left hand. So when we get, say chords that are not idiomatic, it's usually because there's, seconds at the top of the chord and fifths or sixths on the bottom. So I'm having to really stretch my bottom two fingers and then just contort my whole hand to be able to fit that at the harp. Whereas if you reordered it and maybe put the fifth or sixth at the top and then your thirds on the bottom or seconds on the bottom, that feels a lot more comfortable. So it's just kind of understanding how the hands are actually working on the instrument to be able to do that. And then I know for other instruments like winds, idiomatic isn't going to refer to hands. It's going to refer more to, well, it might.
It could.
I don't understand winds, so I'm not going to try to explain that.
Well, this is the challenge of the composer, because we have to learn beyond basic operating way of these instruments.
Right. I'm in awe because I can barely master my own instrument, let alone all the others.
Well, Hindemith used to make his students take lessons on all of the instrument families, or all the instruments even, just so you can encounter that. But you don't really understand it until either you've played that instrument or you've put the music in front of a young player and they just can't do it.
Yeah, and that's something else I've been thinking about, because when I was in school, several of the composers did take secondary harp lessons to learn how to play the harp. And I'm sure it was helpful, but I want to think about, like, when I'm working with composers, if they want a lesson, giving them a lesson with actually the information that they need or the skills that they need, rather than we don't have to go play through Suzuki Book 1 just because you're a beginning harp student.
Right.
That's probably not what you need.
No.
Your technique doesn't have to be perfect. You can probably progress faster to just at least learn the framework of what you need to know, rather than treating you as a beginning harp student. So, and that's probably applicable for any instrument too. The knowledge that you need is different than if you were trying to learn it to be able to play it forever.
Yes. Thank you for saying that, because that's so true. Like my stage in my musical development, I don't need to go back to the beginning. I want to know where are the problem areas and how can I write through them? How can I help you shine on your instrument? This episode is sponsored by Dorico, the future of scoring. And we want to feature real Dorico users so you can know that real composers out in the world today are using Dorico to make their careers happen.
My name is Joseph Soa, and I'm a professional composer and founder of the Wizarding School for Composers, where I teach other composers and musicians to write powerful music with ease. Dorico saves me so much time. I often joke that one of the other programs in particular is a kind of copyist job employment security, just because of how much time it takes to make parts and to fiddle with little details that all you have to do in Dorico is check a checkbox. The biggest thing I like about Dorico is how much you can do from the keyboard. As a result of that, Dorico enables you to put in music and edit music so quickly. I love the fact that I can select multiple staves and input notes into multiple staves all at one time. That's a ton of fun and saves me time. I think the big thing about version 4 that gets me really excited is all the workflow improvements. Taking the processes of me putting the music and me editing the music and making it even faster and even more flexible. One of the things I'm particularly excited about the new version is the note transformation tools, just the ability to rotate and invert and rearrange different musical materials. It's just making Dorico into the most powerful, not just notation software, but composing software. I think that's, to my mind, what stands out head and shoulders above the other programs, is just the flexibility and the naturalness that Dorico enables you to compose and not just notate your music. I would 100% recommend Dorico to anyone. Dorico is the fastest and most powerful scoring program on the market right now. Another thing that I absolutely love about Dorico and the whole team that they have is just they're so easy to get a hold of, and they give such great support, not only in the official documentation and videos, but also through social media channels. So it's just a fantastic community, and that support makes learning the program much easier than it would have been.
To download a free 30-day trial of Dorico 4, visit www.steinberg.net/TPC.
So it looks to me that you had a few eye-opening experiences performing and reading new music, and now you've started to help people, and we've moved into the consulting. Do you like that word better? Coaching area?
I'm still trying to come up with a good word for it, but we'll call it coaching consulting for now.
We don't have a better word right now, right?
Yeah, no, that works.
And you're creating content that is helping the whole music community, composers plus performers. And now you're doing something else too.
Yes.
Tell me about the Toolbox Sessions and what that means.
Yeah, I am so excited about this project. And as a little way of an introduction, when I took my music entrepreneurship class in grad school, the project I created, which my professor said was not financially viable, was to create a database to connect performers and composers together. So someone could say, I want to write for clarinet. Here, let me find a clarinet to help work with me.
Yeah.
So this is actually an extension of that in a way that I think is actually going to work a little bit better. So the Toolbox Sessions is going to be a virtual 3-day conference where we're going to just bring in master performers to talk about all the different instruments. Now, not all of them because we only have so many days to do this, but we're going to be highlighting a few of the main ones, hopefully do it again and bring in, some different ones. So the big thing that I focused on when bringing in the presenters is finding ones who are not only accomplished performers, but also educators and performers who actually work with composers. So they're skilled collaborators. They understand the new music. They understand the challenges that composers are working through, and they can address that. So we're going to have 12 presenters come in and just talk about the basics, not even the basics, but the big things that you need to know when writing for their instrument. So this is going to be a really incredible resource for composers and hopefully something that we will continue doing.
Wow. So it's basically like orchestration conference.
Yes, where you can actually learn from a performer instead of just reading a book. Like I took orchestration as a theory major in school. I taught the section on harp as an undergrad. I didn't know what I was teaching. I didn't know how to teach. I just knew how to play. So if you were in school and you actually had students teaching, great. But you should come here because you're going to have performers who have been doing this for a long time and can tell you what you need to know, not just all the random pet peeves that they have.
Yes. Orchestration textbooks are great, right? Like you need to know the range. You need to know the dynamic capabilities, and you need to know like the trouble spots, and you need to see excerpts from repertoire.
You need those notational examples, and you need an easy reference.
Yeah.
But in order to understand that reference, you have to actually have that experience with the instrument.
Yes. And talking with a real performer.
Right.
So the Toolbox Sessions, 3 days, and these are going to be presentations, or will there be the opportunity to interact with the teachers at all?
We are trying to put that together.
Okay.
So there will be Q&A time after each of the presentations, and then hopefully we'll have some sort of community for people to interact as well. And we did it virtually, just everything is virtual right now, but there's so many opportunities with virtual. There's so many things I was able to participate in because they were virtual. I didn't have to go travel.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this is something that is beneficial to people. The sessions will be recorded, so we will have an option to be able to get access to an on-demand library afterwards. Just in case you can't join live, you can get access to that. Or if you just want to have it and be able to reference it later, which I hope you will.
Yes, I think that's a valuable piece of content to have. Yeah. Give me an example of the instruments that are going to be covered in this first session of Toolbox.
We will be covering harp, of course.
Of course.
Guitar, bassoon, oboe. We have 2 vocalists, saxophone, violin, clarinet, piano, trumpet, and then some subset of percussion. So percussion is so broad. I think our presenter is going to narrow it down a little bit.
That's excellent. And I know that you guys are still in the planning stages.
Yes.
But who are some of the presenters that you've lined up so far?
We have Dr. Lisa Neer. I believe you know her. She's incredible.
We love Lisa. Yeah.
She's one of my favorite people. We have Drew Hostler on saxophone. I work with him in the Blank Experiment. It's a really cool group. Marianne Parker on piano. Brian Kai Chin on trumpet. Dr. John Smith for guitar. So it's going to be a good lineup of people.
That's so cool. Okay. So where can people go to get their tickets? What do they need to know?
Go to toolboxsessions.com. So it's toolbox as in, the box where you put your tools, sessions.com.
And for the listeners, Danielle is going to hook me up with an affiliate link, and I will give that to you. I'll probably have it by the time we release this episode.
Yes.
And I would appreciate it if you used my link, because I am thrilled to partner with Danielle and her collaborators as a sponsor. So the Portfolio Composer is helping Danielle make this live, and you could help me out by using my link to purchase your ticket. So I will make sure that you get that.
Absolutely. We are so honored that you are sponsoring us and partnering with us for this. It means the world to us.
Well, you guys are doing good work, and I think that this is the kind of thing that needs to happen. And what I particularly like about it is everything that you've said already about your rationale for why you do it. But from a business perspective, you saw a need, you saw a problem, and you're solving it.
Working too. Yeah.
And that's the heart of what business is. It's like, oh, composers want to know more about how to write well. I can help them do that.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what you were saying.
At least for Harp. I can do that for Harp.
Right.
And then I'm bringing people along to address everything else that I can't do.
What do you hope the people who come to Toolbox Sessions get out of it? Like, what is the ideal outcome for you?
So there's two things. First is that composers will have a little bit less fear about writing for some of these less common instruments. So for harp specifically, I know a lot of composers are either on the extreme of they assume it's all fine and they send it to a harpist, and then a harpist goes, I can't play this. And then they get terrified, and then they are too nervous to actually write anything. So they just write super simple out of fear. And I want composers to be able to work through that and be able to write confidently and be able to actually express their creativity without being terrified that something's not going to be playable. So that's my first goal. Second goal is that composers will know who to go to with questions, because these are going to be 1-hour presentations. You can't go into all the possible details in 1 hour. Like, I teach a full course on writing for the harp. So my presentation is simply going to be an introduction to topics, just to let you know what types of things do you need to be thinking through. So after the conference, my goal is that you'll kind of know where you can go with questions. If you have questions, you can about writing for the voice. Lisa is a great resource. You could work with her. If you have questions for saxophone, message Drew. If you have questions for harp, message me. And you'll kind of have resources and know where to go to continue learning.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to find performers that are interested in new music. It's sad, but it's true.
And performers, like you said, that can communicate back to the composer in a helpful way.
Right. Because most performers will intuitively know if something works or it doesn't. But you have to go a step beyond that and actually be able to explain to the composer why. Otherwise, it's not helpful. They just say, can you practice more and make it work? No. Sometimes, yes. Most of the time, no.
Sometimes, yes.
Most of the time, it's just going to, give me injury if I'm trying to do the same thing.
Right. And then help me think of a way to communicate the idea that I have, that music behind the music that you were mentioning, that's going to work well. When I work with performers and they could say, okay, I can see that this is what you're really trying to do. Try writing it like this. I find that extremely useful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the moments that, I realized back in my undergrad when I was working with composers, and I was like, oh, I see the idea that you're doing. Try this. It looks completely different on the page, but it's going to communicate your idea even better than what you were imagining. And then I played it and they were like, that's it. And I was like, this is my purpose in life. I love this. Because it's all about, just that creative expression and being able to put your ideas into paper, but not just into paper, actually into music.
I'm just totally thrilled that you guys are doing this. I think it's a good thing.
I'm so excited about it.
And I plan on being there. Where can people go to learn more about you and the work you're doing? And how can they approach you if they have harp questions?
The easiest way to reach out to me is through my website, daniellekuntz.com. I'm on all the socials, so you can reach out to me, Facebook, Instagram. I do a lot of my harp tips content on Instagram, so at Danielle Kuntz Harp, Twitter, Danielle K Harp, YouTube. I have a lot of harp tutorials on YouTube as well. Feel free to reach out to me as well if you have questions, want to work with me, want to get a score reading session, or just get a score reviewed.
Excellent.
It's all on my website.
That's so good. All right. Composers, if you have any questions about harp, I really do mean this. I wouldn't have brought Danielle on if I didn't. You guys need to reach out to her and follow her content and then send her your scores, right? And let her give you feedback because we want to do this thing we do well. We want to communicate to our audiences.
And get your music performed.
And get it performed. And if it's not written well, performers aren't going to want to do it, at least more than once.
That's true.
All right, Danielle, thank you so much for your time. I'm really excited to be a part of this and to help you bring it to the world.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
This episode of The Portfolio Composer was brought to you by Dorico 4, the most advanced music notation software ever created. Dorico was designed to save you time and gives you the tools you need to produce beautiful and readable scores fast, so you can spend less time fiddling with menus and rules and more time doing what you love, making music. Now you can take Steinberg's music notation and composition software with you wherever you go with Dorico for iPad. Whether you're a composer, arranger, instrumentalist, teacher, or student, Dorico is the ideal app for producing beautiful sheet music that you can share as a PDF or music XML, or print directly to your AirPrint-enabled printer. Dorico for iPad is available now in the App Store. Learn more at www.dorico.com/iPad. You can also try the full version of Dorico out for 30 days for free by downloading the trial version at www.steinberg.net/TPC. Try it today.